Hey, and welcome to part 2. This part is much shorter, just a couple problems I want to go through, but we are talking about basic right triangle trigonometry. So make sure you watch part 1, but let's pick up with our horse problems. Remember, some old horse caught another horse taking oats away. Each of these letters stands for another word. So those words help us with trigonometry. So I think we worked through a couple problems, and this is the one that we're on now. So if you take a look at this problem right here, when you look and you think about, okay, trigonometry, we've got to first of all figure out where we're standing, and we're standing right here at this 38-degree angle. And when we look out from that 38-degree angle, we see that this side 8 is our opposite side. And let's go after, say, x. And so x, that's our hypotenuse. It's opposite the right angle. And so when we think about, okay, how can we relate this 38-degree angle with the opposite and the hypotenuse side? If you come over to our little horse story, remember, some old horse caught another horse taking oats away. Opposite and hypotenuse, that's the sine function. So I can come down here and I can say the sine of 38 degrees equals the opposite, 8, over the hypotenuse, x. And so this time it's a little bit different. Notice where x is. X is in the denominator of the fraction. And what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get x all by itself. So in this case, I think the very first thing we need to do is multiply both sides by x. Because what this will do for us is it will get the x out from the bottom of the denominator. Now, it doesn't get the x by itself. Notice the x is now attached over here to the sine of 38 degrees. But it does free the x from the denominator. Now, real quickly, just to kind of go through some ideas of functions with you, this x cannot penetrate the function. You see, a function like sine, cosine, and tangent acts on this angle. And these giant parentheses, like imagine or pretend that they're giant function arms, and they're prohibiting this 38 from mingling with the x. So we end up getting x times the sine of 38 degrees equals 8. And again, our goal is to get the x all by itself. So how do we undo multiplication? Division. So we're going to divide both sides by the sine of 38 degrees. So over here, we're going to go ahead and divide, and that will cancel out. And so what we end up getting is x equals 8 divided by the sine of 38 degrees. And again, remember the three things I need to see for every problem in your homework, in your notes, in your quizzes, are the initial trigonometric equation, the sine of 38 equals 8 over x, and then what you're going to put in your calculator. And the third thing is the answer. So I'm going to get out my calculator, and I'm going to go ahead here, and I'm going to type in 8 divided by the sine of 38. And that gives me about 12.99. And so that's my value for x. Now, we need to go through and find y. But before we do that, before we find y, I do want to say that there are some kids who are in what I call the shortcut club, who can skip this step entirely and are able to figure out in their head how to go from this initial equation right here, the sine of 38 equals 8 over x, directly to this. And if you could figure that out in your head, that's a really great shortcut to take. And if you can't figure it out in your head, that's okay. It's just one extra line of work. But it's kind of worth thinking about. Okay, now let's go after y. So again, we're going to stand at this 38 degrees. I don't want to use this rounded value for x because, you know, it's rounded and it could be wrong. So let's use the 8. So standing here at 38 degrees, 8 is the opposite side. Y is the adjacent side. Opposite and adjacent, that's tangent. So the tangent of 38 equals the opposite, 8, over the adjacent side, y. Now, If you are a member of this shortcut club and you can figure out how to get y by itself in one step, fantastic. If you can't, I think this is what we do. First, we're going to multiply both sides by y because we just need to get it out from under the denominator here. And we get y times the tangent of 38 equals 8. Y we didn't get by itself, but we did free it from the denominator. So to get rid of the multiplication, we're going to do division. And this ends up giving us that y equals 8 divided by the tangent of 38 degrees. So in my calculator, 8 divided by the tangent of 38 degrees is about 10.24. So y is about 10.24. And again, there are some kids who can just get rid of this step and go directly from here to there. And if you can figure that out for yourself, dynamite. One last problem, and why don't you try this one all by yourself, and then I'll kind of walk through it. So why don't you pause the video, give it a go. Well, welcome back. Hopefully you did pause the video and you tried it yourself. But let's think about this. We're going to stand right up here at the 23 degrees. And I see this side 7 is the adjacent side. It's next to 23. This y is the opposite side, and this x is the hypotenuse. And telling our little story, we might first go after x by thinking about, okay, we have an adjacent and a hypotenuse, and that's cosine. So the cosine of 23 is the adjacent, the adjacent over the hypotenuse. And as you can see, we're going to multiply both sides by x to free it from the denominator. And again, by now, a couple of you have already figured out the shortcut to this. So x times the cosine of 23 degrees equals 7. And then we undo multiplication by division, and that gives us x equals 7 divided by the cosine of 23. And again, there would be some kids, some of you out there, who can skip this step entirely. But the three things I need to see, the initial trig equation, what you put into your calculator, and the final answer. And we get about 7.60. To go after y now, y is an opposite, and 7 is the adjacent, and that's the tangent function. So the tangent of 23 is the opposite, which is y, and the adjacent, which is 7. Now notice y is not trapped in the denominator. So when I get rid of my fraction by multiplying both sides by 7, we have y all by itself right away. And we can just dump that in our calculator and get our value for y. So I know there were 2 videos for you to watch. They were a little lengthy, but now you've seen how basic right triangle trigonometry works, and you have some homework. So good luck.